A chess program trains for 4 hours. 4 hours. Against itself. No human coach, no database of grandmaster games, no accumulated wisdom of 500 years of play. Just rules, a reward function, and time. At the end of those 4 hours, it beats every human and every machine ever built. Garry Kasparov, the greatest chess mind of the 20th century, watches its games and says, chess has been shaken to its roots. But here is the thing that should unsettle you. The moves AlphaZero played were not better versions of human moves. They were not refinements of strategies humans had already conceived. They were moves no human had ever thought of. Moves that, when humans studied them afterward, they could barely explain. Moves that suggest AlphaZero was perceiving something about the game that human minds had never accessed and possibly cannot access. That is not a chess story. That is a story about the nature of reality and who gets to know it. And that is what Kissinger, Schmidt, and Huttenlocher are actually writing about in this book. Not AI as a technology story, AI as a philosophical rupture. The moment in human history when we created something that knows the world differently from us, not worse. Not just faster, differently. And the question they are asking, which nobody is comfortable sitting with, is, what happens to us now? To understand why this book matters, you have to go back further than Silicon Valley. You have to go back to Descartes. In 1637, René Descartes writes, "Cogito ergo sum." I think, therefore I am. And in that sentence, he does something radical. He makes human reason the foundation of everything. Not God, not Scripture, not the Church's interpretation of reality. Human reason. The thinking mind becomes the measure of all things. This is the move that launches the Enlightenment. It produces Newton's laws, the printing press revolution, the scientific method, the French Revolution, democracy, the industrial age. Everything we call modernity flows from that sentence. The bet that human reason, applied carefully, can know the world. For 300 years, that bet pays off spectacularly. We map the oceans, split the atom, land on the moon, sequence the genome. Every mystery that has ever defeated us eventually yields to human reason. Some problems take decades, some take centuries, but the framework holds. There is a knowable world, and we, the reasoning species, are the ones who get to know it. Then something shifts. The shift does not arrive with AlphaZero. It arrives earlier, quieter. Immanuel Kant gets there first. In 1781, Kant publishes the Critique of Pure Reason, and he makes a disturbing argument. Reality, he says, has 2 layers. There is the world as we experience it, filtered through the structures of our minds. And then there is the thing in itself, reality as it actually is, unfiltered, direct, raw. And Kant's argument is that we can never reach the second layer. Our minds are not built for it. We are permanently limited to the world as we experience it, which is not the same as the world as it is. For 200 years, this was a philosophical puzzle without practical consequence. Because if human minds are the only minds we have, then the limitation barely matters. We cannot access the thing in itself, but neither can anything else. So we operate as if our filtered version of reality is reality. And then we build something that might not have our filters. The AI that MIT researchers train to find new antibiotics does not look at molecules the way a chemist looks at molecules. It does not use the conceptual categories chemists developed over centuries. It identifies patterns in molecular structure that no human has named, patterns that may not correspond to anything in the existing vocabulary of chemistry. It finds a compound, called halicin that kills bacteria resistant to every known antibiotic, including tuberculosis strains and pathogens we have declared untreatable. And when the researchers ask, why does this work? The honest answer is, we do not fully know. The AI found it by perceiving something we cannot articulate. Kant spent his life warning us that something like this might happen. The age of AI is, among other things, the moment his warning becomes concrete. Here is the paradox at the center of this book. The three authors, Kissinger the diplomat, Schmidt the technologist, Huttenlocher the computer scientist, are each looking at the same phenomenon and each seeing something different. And their inability to fully reconcile their perspectives is not a flaw. It is the point. Kissinger sees a world order problem. He has spent his life managing a world in which power is calculable. You count missiles. You map alliances. You read the psychology of your adversaries. You know the rules. Nuclear weapons broke some of these rules, but even nuclear deterrence had a logic. Mutually assured destruction is a terrible strategy, but at least it is a comprehensible one. You know what the other side is doing, because the other side knows what they are doing. Now imagine a world in which both sides of a conflict have delegated strategic decisions to AI systems that neither side fully understands. Both sides know the enemy has AI. Neither side knows exactly what it will do. The AI is faster than human thought. It perceives patterns humans cannot see. It makes moves that, even in retrospect, take analysts hours to decode. And somewhere in that fog, a decision gets made that neither side intended, and a war starts that nobody chose. This is not science fiction. This is the logical extension of where we are going right now. Schmidt sees a platform problem. He built Google. He watched the internet transform from a neutral network into something more like an operating system for human cognition. He watched search engines evolve from directories to predictive systems, systems that do not just find what you ask for, but predict what you want and shape what you see. He watched Facebook become the primary mechanism by which 3 billion people encounter information about the world. And he understands, in a visceral way that most people do not, that these systems are not neutral. They are not windows onto reality. They are editors of reality, and increasingly, the editors are not human. TikTok is the crystallizing case in this book. It is a video platform. It shows people short videos. Its algorithm is trained to maximize engagement. This seems harmless. And then you discover that the algorithm, pursuing engagement in the way it has learned to pursue it, discovers that certain emotional states, certain kinds of grievance and outrage and fear, are more engaging than others. It has not been told to radicalize people. It does not want to radicalize people. It has simply learned, through billions of interactions, that some content makes people watch longer. And the content that makes people watch longest is often the content that is worst for them. This is AI operating exactly as designed, pursuing its objective function with extraordinary efficiency, and producing consequences nobody intended and nobody fully understands. Huttenlocher sees an identity problem. He is the one who keeps asking the question that is hardest to answer. When we outsource cognition to machines, what happens to us? Not to civilization, to us, to the individual human being who grows up in a world where an AI can write the essay, find the information, predict the outcome, make the recommendation. What happens to human agency? What happens to the experience of reasoning your way through something, of not knowing and then knowing, of being wrong and then being corrected, of the irreducibly human process of working something out? And the disturbing answer the book gestures toward is, we do not know. We have never run this experiment before. We are running it now, on everyone, without consent, without controls, without any clear way to measure the outcome until it is already too late to change course. The geopolitical story in this book is the one that will age the worst if we get it wrong, and the best if we get it right. The United States and China are in an AI arms race. This is not a metaphor. Both governments have declared AI dominance a national security priority. Both governments are pouring resources into military AI applications. Both governments have military AI systems already deployed or in testing that can operate faster than human reaction time. And both governments have, so far, failed to have any serious conversation about what the rules should be. This is the nuclear comparison Kissinger keeps returning to. Nuclear weapons were existentially terrifying, but they had qualities that made arms control possible. You could count warheads. You could verify reductions through satellite inspection. You could establish clear red lines. You knew what a nuclear weapon was. AI weapons are none of these things. An AI system is code. Code that can be copied instantly, deployed from a laptop, modified without announcement, and distributed globally overnight. Verification is essentially impossible. Red lines are nearly impossible to define because the same AI that optimizes logistics can be adapted for targeting, and the same AI that monitors disinformation can be adapted to produce it. The dual-use nature of AI is not a feature of some AI applications. It is a feature of all AI applications. And then there is the speed problem. The entire framework of Cold War deterrence was built on the assumption that humans would make the final decisions. The assumption that somewhere in the chain there would be a moment of human deliberation. This assumption is already under pressure. AI systems can process information and generate recommendations faster than any human analyst. If both sides arm themselves with autonomous systems designed to respond to threats at machine speed, the window for human deliberation shrinks toward zero. And in a crisis, zero is a very dangerous number. The network platform section of this book is where the authors are at their most prescient about how AI is already reshaping daily life in ways most people are not tracking. The key insight is what they call the positive network effect. Network platforms become more valuable as more people use them, which means they tend toward monopoly, which means a small number of private companies now control the information environment of billions of people. These platforms do not set out to manipulate anyone. They set out to serve users. But the objective function they are optimizing, engagement, is not the same as the function that would produce an informed, epistemically healthy public. Maximizing engagement means maximizing emotional response, which means maximizing conflict and outrage and tribal identity, which means, at scale and over time, fragmenting a shared reality. People who primarily consume AI-curated information are not living in the same information environment as their neighbors. They are living in AI-generated alternate realities, and the divergence is widening. This is the human identity section of the book, and it is the one that sits with you longest. The authors argue that the Enlightenment was fundamentally a bet on human reason as the defining characteristic of humanity. That bet produced everything worth having in the modern world. And AI is not destroying that bet. It is complicating it in ways we have no philosophical framework to process. When you can ask an AI to write your essay, and the essay is better than what you would have written, what does that do to your relationship with your own thinking? When you can ask an AI to diagnose your medical symptoms, and it is more accurate than your doctor, what does that do to your relationship with professional expertise? When you can ask an AI to predict how your relationship will develop based on behavioral data, and the prediction is more accurate than your own intuition, What does that do to your relationship with your own inner life? These are not hypothetical questions. These are questions millions of people are beginning to face right now, without any cultural or philosophical preparation for them. There is a moment in the preface where the three authors describe the meetings that produced this book. They're writing during COVID. They're meeting by video conference. And in those meetings, they say, they experienced something AI does not have: friendship, worry, doubt, curiosity. The irreducibly human texture of three old men trying to figure out something that is genuinely terrifying. I think that detail is the thesis, expressed not as argument but as practice. The book is not against AI. It is not a Luddite text. Schmidt built one of the most powerful AI companies on Earth. He is not writing a warning against what he helped create. The argument is more subtle than that. The argument is that AI requires philosophy, not slogans, not policy papers, not corporate ethics boards, actual philosophy. The kind of sustained, rigorous, uncomfortable thinking that Kant did when the Enlightenment produced new possibilities and new dangers simultaneously. The kind of thinking that asks not just, can we do this? But what does it mean that we can? What are we becoming? What do we want to be? The Gutenberg press comparison in the final chapter is the key to the whole book. When the printing press arrived, it produced chaos. It shattered the church's monopoly on information. It enabled the Protestant Reformation and the scientific revolution and, eventually, democracy. It also enabled propaganda, religious wars, the persecution of heretics, and centuries of political violence. The same technology that liberated human thought also weaponized it. And the societies that navigated that transition best were the ones that developed philosophy and governance frameworks fast enough to shape the technology rather than simply be shaped by it. We are at that moment again. The technology is already deployed. It is already changing cognition, political reality, military strategy, economic structure, and human identity. The question is not whether this happens. It is whether we will think carefully enough, quickly enough, to have any say in what it becomes. Kissinger is 98 years old when this book is published. He has watched every major transformation of the post-war world. He has managed crises that could have ended civilization. And his conclusion, after a lifetime of watching humans fail to think far enough ahead and then scrambling to recover, is that the AI transformation requires something we have never quite managed before: global philosophical coordination, not just arms control, not just regulation, a shared understanding across civilizations and governments and competing interests of what we are doing to ourselves. He is probably right that we will not achieve it. He is definitely right that we have to try. The machine has learned to play chess in 4 hours. It has learned to find antibiotics humans could not find. It has learned to generate text that is indistinguishable from human writing. It is learning to fly planes, design weapons, curate information, recommend decisions, and model protein structures. It does not know what it is doing. It cannot. It has no sense of its own significance, no awareness of the history it is interrupting, no curiosity about the world it is revealing. That is our job. It has always been our job. The question is whether we will do it.